And then the vibration grew stronger, rippling outward like an invisible tide spreading beneath the streets, shaking dust loose from shuttered windows and making stray dogs whine and dart for cover. Arin turned in a slow circle, his heartbeat echoing louder than the tremors themselves, noticing how every person around him suddenly froze, glancing at the ground as if unsure whether to run or pray. The air thickened, pulsing with a strange electric weight that made breathing feel like pulling air through syrup. A faint humming grew above the rooftops, soft at first, almost gentle, then swelling into a deep resonant tone that made the hairs on Arin's arms stand straight. He searched the sky instinctively, expecting storm clouds, military jets, anything familiar, but the sky offered nothing except its vast, eerie stillness. Even the sun seemed caught behind an unnatural haze, its light distorted into a pale golden smear fanning across the clouds. The humming intensified, vibrating in Arin's teeth, and then suddenly the world flashed white, just for a fraction of a second, a blinding pulse like the blink of a giant eye. Gasps erupted across the street, people stumbled backward, and the air snapped with a crackle of static so strong that Arin felt tiny sparks dance across his fingertips. He shielded his face, blinking through the fading afterimage, and when his vision cleared, he saw it, a single rift hanging in the sky above the clock tower, a jagged tear of shimmering blue light slicing the atmosphere like a wound in reality itself. It rippled, twisted, and pulsed as though alive, its edges glowing brighter with each heartbeat. And then, without warning, a sound poured out of the rift, not a boom, not a scream, but a chorus of layered whispers, thousands of voices overlapping, speaking in a language no human tongue could shape. Some people collapsed to their knees, others clamped their hands over their ears, trembling. But Arin, frozen in place, felt those whispers sink into him, threading through his mind like fragments of half-remembered dreams. He staggered backward, feeling a strange warmth crawling up his spine, a pressure building behind his eyes as the rift flickered and expanded. Suddenly, a burst of light exploded from the tear, shooting straight toward the earth, spiraling like a falling star, and before Arin could react, it struck the ground just a few feet in front of him, sending a wave of energy outward that knocked him off his feet and slammed him against the base of the clock tower. For a moment he couldn't breathe, the world spun, blurred, then slowly steadied. When he opened his eyes, he saw a shimmering orb floating in the crater left by the impact, radiating soft blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Everyone else had backed away, trembling in fear, but for some reason Arin felt drawn to it, as if an invisible thread tugged at him. The orb hovered, rising higher, rotating slowly until it faced him directly. Yes, faced him, because as absurd as it seemed, Arin felt unquestionably certain the orb was aware of him. His breath caught, a thin tendril of light extended outward, reaching for him like an outstretched hand. Every instinct screamed to run, but his legs wouldn't obey. The whispers in his mind intensified, forming words he could almost understand, not spoken, but felt. Chosen, awaken, guardian. The moment the tendril touched his chest, a surge of energy ripped through him, burning like fire and ice fused into one, flooding his veins with lightning and light. Arin cried out, clutching his chest, feeling memories that weren't his flash through his mind, towering temples made of crystal, beings woven from starlight, battles fought in skies he had never seen. The orb pulsed brighter, then dissolved into a stream of luminous particles that circled him before sinking into his skin, disappearing without a trace. Silence followed. The rift still shimmered in the sky, but the whispers faded, and the tremors stilled. People stared at Arin in a mixture of awe and terror, whispering among themselves, backing farther away. He tried to stand but stumbled, gripping the side of the tower for balance. His pulse raced, his breath quivered, and a glow flickered faintly beneath his skin like embers burning in the dark. Nothing made sense, the rift, the orb, the voices, the visions, yet deep inside, beneath the panic, he felt something else stirring, purpose. A purpose he didn't understand but couldn't ignore. And as the ground finally fell silent, the town frozen in stunned disbelief, Arin whispered to himself, what just happened to me? But the answer was already forming somewhere in the depths of his mind, carried by the fading echo of those mysterious voices. This is only the beginning. If you're watching this story unfold, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will change everything you think you know. Night arrived in Naruvale like a thick, suffocating blanket, settling over the town with an unnatural heaviness that felt almost sentient, as though the darkness itself had come alive to observe what had been set in motion earlier that day. Arin sat on the edge of his bed, trembling hands clenched around the fabric of his shirt, replaying every second of the strange encounter, the sky's rift, and the orb that had fused with him, burning its presence into his very bloodstream. His room, once his sanctuary, now felt like a foreign space closing in around him, its familiar posters and scattered notebooks seeming distorted under the dim lamp's glow. Every breath he took carried a faint echo of the whispers that had spoken to him, like distant voices murmuring from another world just beyond the thin veil of reality. He pressed his palms against his temples, trying to silence the hum inside his head, but the glow beneath his skin, soft, rhythmic, alive, flared gently each time he inhaled, reminding him that nothing about his life was ordinary anymore. Outside, the town tried to pretend things were normal. Houses lit their windows, families ate dinner in hushed confusion, and distant dogs barked at shadows they didn't understand. But Arin felt the change as clearly as he felt the blood pulsing in his veins. The world was no longer the same. Something had been triggered. As he tried to steady his breathing, a sharp knock rattled his bedroom window, sending his heart lurching into his throat. He froze, the air turning cold around him, and the glow under his skin flickered like startled fire. Another knock, this time more urgent. Slowly, feeling the weight of unseen eyes watching him, Arin approached the window and pulled back the curtain. Standing outside in the moon's pale light was Mira Vales, his childhood friend and the only person who had always understood him better than anyone else. But tonight, her eyes were wide, not with their usual playful mischief, but with fear and confusion. "Arin," she whispered through the glass, "you need to let me in." Now, he unlatched the window, and Mira slipped inside, glancing over her shoulder as though something might have followed her. Her breaths came short, uneven. "Arin, the whole town is talking about what happened, and I saw it." "I saw you." Arin backed away, instinctively hiding his glowing wrist behind him. "You shouldn't be here," he said, voice shaking. "It's not safe." Mira stepped closer, her gaze hardening with a mixture of concern and determination. "I'm not leaving. Tell me what happened." Before he could speak, the shadows in the corner of the room quivered, just slightly, but enough to freeze them both. Arin turned his head slowly, dread coiling in his chest. The shadows thickened, darkening as if ink were spilling into the air. Mira grabbed his arm. "Arin, what is that?" But Arin didn't know. The shadow twisted, coalescing into a vaguely human form, a silhouette darker than any natural darkness, its edges rippling like smoke. A pair of hollow, silver eyes opened within it, empty yet piercing, fixed directly on Arin. The whispers returned instantly, louder, clearer, pushing against his mind. "He found you, the hunter, run." The shadow creature extended a hand-like appendage toward him, and the air grew cold enough that Arin's breath turned misty. "Stay behind me," Arin said instinctively, though he had no idea why those words came out so naturally. His skin flared with bright blue light, illuminating the room in vibrant pulses that made the shadow shrink back momentarily. Mira gasped, stumbling away from him in shock, but Arin couldn't look at her. His entire focus was locked on the thing advancing toward him. The creature's voice emerged not as sound, but as a vibration that rattled every object in the room. "You are the vessel, the key must be reclaimed, surrender." Arin's pulse hammered, but in his chest he felt something respond, a force rising inside him like a sleeping storm awakening. His hands ignited with swirling patterns of light, ancient symbols he didn't recognize burning into his skin like celestial tattoos. The creature lunged. Instinct took over. Arin thrust his hand forward, and a burst of blue energy shot across the room with explosive force, slamming into the shadow creature and sending it crashing into the wall with a deafening roar. The impact rattled the windows and shook the floorboards. Mira screamed, covering her head as debris fell around them. The shadow creature writhed, its form flickering, distorting as if struggling to maintain its shape in the light pouring from Arin's body. With a final screech, it dissolved into smoke and vanished, leaving behind only a chilling silence. Arin collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath, his glowing hands dimming as exhaustion overtook him. Mira hesitated, then rushed to his side. "Arin, what was that? What are you?" Her voice trembled, but not with fear, rather with desperation, worry, and something deeper. Arin looked up at her, his eyes glowing faintly, tears brimming. "I don't know," he whispered. "But I think I'm not just me anymore." Outside, a distant rumbling rolled across the sky, a warning, a reminder that the rift still hung above the world like a wound refusing to close. And as Arin sat trembling in Mira's arms, both terrified and awestruck by the power surging within him, one thing became painfully clear: the orb hadn't chosen him by accident. Something ancient had awakened inside him, and something else, something dark, was already hunting for him. What happens next? Only those who stay with this story will discover the truth. So if you're watching this unfold, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because the journey is only getting more dangerous, and you won't want to miss what comes next. Subscribe Karen. Thanks for everyone's